we're gonna hash some stuff out here. I got my notes here just so I won't forget what I was gonna say. And I have, on occasion, stopped to help stranded motorists, you know, because there's not really a lot of axe murders and stuff down here in South Alabama. But if the vehicle is overheated, like I have stopped and said, the radiator would bust and they would, you know, be blowing steam, they'd burn the motor up. So basically, if they don't have a cell phone, which most people have one now, you get the cell phone out and call. I don't typically stop and help as much as I used to because everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket now, even if it's a prepaid, right? Most people do. And I'll see them with a phone up to their ear, calling somebody for help usually. Now, sometimes I'll see people broke down from in here and off, you know. But now if I see somebody stopped in to try to change a tire and I can tell they don't have a clue what they're doing, I usually stop and help them change the tire, you know, and that kind of thing. It's a whole lot better to have a jack in your trunk if you just jack it right on up. But this here dead in the water vehicles, the ones that don't start, are the ones I'm always trying to get you guys acclimated to. Is if you're working at a shop and somebody sends you outside to go get a car started that won't start and you can't even tell them what's wrong with it when you come back in there, they're gonna think they hired the wrong person and they're gonna put you sweeping the floor. That's usually the way it is. So you better be able to figure out. If you can't get it started, you better say it's out of time, it's jump time or something, and be right when you come back in there. It's really important. Well, this friend of mine bought this F-150 back in 1992. He bought it when it was about a year old, and he drove it for years. And he's the same one that owns that tractor Eddie and him working on there now. He's an old friend of mine. I've known him since before I was 10 years old. I've known this guy. But anyway, he had this 91 Ford pickup truck. And he had actually relegated it over the years, and, you know, to a farm truck. And his wife would drive it down to the chicken houses, and she would, you know, work the chickens and all that kind of stuff. And so she had problems with his truck. She would take off down to the chicken house with it, and it would die on her. I'll show you a picture of the truck right now, if I can get it to change. That's the truck. That's a picture of the truck. That's what it looks like. And it kind of is sitting there. And they had actually bought another truck that was a couple of years newer just to use for the chicken house work because this one here wasn't dependable. And so basically what happened there was I went out there and hooked up some jumper cables to it. You know, asked me to look at it the day when I was off. So I fired it up and it started and it immediately went dead. And I hear all kinds of stuff buzzing, just buzzing and clicking and all kind of crazy stuff under the hood. And I checked in the power relay, which powers up the injectors and the engine controller and the transmission solenoids and all that. It was solidly latched. It wasn't bouncing. And so here I am finding out that the coil was popping, just steady popping. There was two solenoids over there that were steady popping. Now, the one time before I had seen something similar to this when I was at the dealership. And what I noticed at the dealership, what I found at the dealership that particular day, was a ground that looked like that one right there. See that ground? You can obviously tell it's not like it ought to be. So I took all of that apart and I cleaned it all up and I clamped it back down. That ground is whenever you step up there and look down there by the battery, there's a post sticking out right there. That's where that ground is going to the body. Body ground's really important on that thing. And there's, you know, if the grounds aren't right, you're going to have crazy stuff going on. And when I hear a lot of stuff popping and clicking and all that kind of thing, like for instance, if I turn on one thing and something else comes on, I know I've got a ground problem. And so just always remember that. So, you know, and also I found out the buzzing would stop when I disconnected that ground wire, and that's another thing it went me to change it and all that kind of stuff. This is the ignition system on this thing. Now, these are 3 wires here, leading from the thick film ignition module to PCM. And I'll show you a picture of this module in a minute. The profile ignition pickup leading the PCM 56 was the path taken by the trigger signal that was causing the module to fire the coil. And it was just buzzing. I mean, it was just steady buzzing the whole time. The wire leading to pin 16 carries a ground that originates at the top bolt securing the TFI module to the distributor. Basically, it's coming out of the distributor going to pin 16. Now, what is this? What are these right here? What's this? When you've got these dotted, looks like a barrel around these things. What is that? You remember? We talked about this one time before. That's a shield. It's a foil shield, just like on that board right over there, the ignition board that you see. There's foil wrapped around that wire, and there's a naked wire coming out of it that's going to ground. And that basically prevents these wires from getting interference from high current sources that are going nearby. But if you get high current sources, let me pause just for a second and tell you a story about this lady that was driving this Oldsmobile. It was like a little 4-cylinder 86 Oldsmobile. It was a pretty nice little car. And she drove it, and she called me when I was at the Ford place. It was about time to get off anyway. She's somebody I knew. She said, my car quit as I crossed the traffic circle, and I pulled in here at this place over here, close to Walgreens or whatever it was. And she said, I started it up and it goes dead. I started up and it goes dead. And she said, I can't go anywhere. I'm just sitting here. And I said, okay. So I drove out there, and she opened the hood, and I took the little air cleaner off. It had one of these little throttle body injectors in it. And I said, start it up and let me see what happens, you know, because you can see the fuel spray on that throttle body injector. So she fires it up, and it's just spraying steady. After the engine has died, it keeps spraying. And I hear the radiator fan running and all this, and in a second, she does it again, and I watch it again, and switch it off, and quit spraying. She switched it back on, tried to start it, and it goes to spraying again. And then I look down here, and I see smoke coming out of the engine coolant fan, and I'm smelling something. So I unplug the engine coolant fan, and I said, crank it, and she fires it up, and it runs just fine. And I said, okay, now while it's running, I'm gonna plug in this fan. So I plugged the fan in, and the engine started, the injector started adding a bunch of extra squirts, and it died again, and it kept squirting. That fan was making enough electrical noise washing through that engine compartment that it was confusing the computer into thinking that it was supposed to do stuff it wasn't doing. It was a really nasty mess. All I had to do was put a $30 fan motor on it, her problem was fixed. It wasn't a problem with the fuel injection. It was, the fuel injection issue was an effect. The cause was a fan motor. The condition was a stall. The cause was a fan motor. The correction was replacing the fan motor. That's basically how that was. So I'm looking at a situation like that, and I remembered that when this was going on. And I couldn't find any high current stuff going on. This right here is the wires that plug into that. You might notice this looks like the one we got on our Bronco out here, the ignition module. All right, I disconnected the spark output connector when I unplugged it. The spark output connector, how many of you have set the timing on a Bronco? You got to pull out a little shorting plug and then you shoot the timing light down there. I disconnected that. The spout couldn't cause the DFI module fire the coil though. The profile ignition pickup circuit had to be the guilty path, and that is the one that you see right here. That blue wire on top, I disengaged it from connector, pulled it back, plugged everything else in, and I got absolutely no coil activity whatsoever. So I knew that whatever was coming out here.
If your students want to stay inside during lunch, I'll stay also.
Okay.
Keep them out of the weather.
Sure. All right. Now right here, also these solenoids over here were carrying on. They were going clickety, 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 it's 90 miles an hour. You know, and so I said, all right, so these right here and these right here, the only thing that this and that, these were still clicking even though the coil wasn't firing. So whatever it was apparently coming out of the PCM, but I didn't necessarily want to condemn the PCM quite yet. One of the things I found out a long time ago is if you condemn the PCM, you're usually off base. You can throw PCMs at them all day long and not fix a daggum thing, and then find out, you know, because you got issues with that. All right, so there's an email exchange. We're going to go into that in a minute. Well, I'll tell you what I did to finish this job up here. I said, I finally exhausted all my testing, and I said, I believe this engine controller has gone completely crazy. And it just so happened that his, yeah, there's a leak up there. It just so happened that his dad had a pickup truck exactly like his, except it was a different color. Okay, now here's the question. I've got an engine controller that I suspect is bad. And I've got two trucks. I got one that runs like it's supposed to, and I got one that won't run. How am I going to use those two trucks to test the engine controller and see, test to see if the engine controller is bad? What's the smart way to do it?
Take the good one off, put it on the other, like on the other truck.
You're close, but no cigar. If you take, let me ask you this. What if I take the one off his dad's truck, which runs just fine, and I put it on his truck, and whatever it was that fried the one on his truck now fries his dad's? So now we get, huh?
Check voltage in each pin.
No, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take the one that doesn't run and put it on the good truck. Because there's no way the engine controller can mess the truck up, right? The truck can mess up the engine controller, but the engine controller can't mess up the truck. So I put that engine controller off the white truck on the blue and white one, which was his dad's truck, and it cranked and ran exactly the same thing. It was buzzing all the all of the, coil and all that junk the same way. So that's the way I condemned the engine controller, and I took care of that by putting an engine controller from the parts house on it, and they were in there. And as a matter of fact, they sold that truck to my uncle, and he's driving it today. And this article went in Motor Age March 2004. So that's how long my uncle's been driving that truck. And so anyway, the truck is running again. Now, look at this email exchange. Watch this, because this is important stuff right here. This email came to me last night through my website. She's got a 2000 Honda Accord 4-cylinder. She's been having an issue for 2 months now, as you describe it. Nobody can figure it out. When she starts her car and she goes to drive it, it doesn't go, or it has a tough time going. Sometimes the RPM fluctuate before, and sometimes it stays around 2,000 RPM. She can floor it and it goes nowhere. Then after a little bit of time, 10, 15 minutes of driving, it goes just fine, like it never happened. There's no light on in the car, doesn't pull any codes, and she put CataClean in it. I guess that's the chemical you put in there to clean your catalytic converter. And you can't tell if it worked. Well, it wouldn't be hard to tell if it worked. It either worked or it didn't, you know. Or, he says it's got a small exhaust leak. Had a new starter put on about 2 months ago and asked the mechanic there. He said he messed with the fuel line. What's that mean? So when I start the car and I'm in park, it'll choke and die like it's not getting fuel. I don't know. I'm at a loss. Please help. All right. So I check my email all day, so feel free to email me if you have questions. All right. So what would you tell her? Where are you going to start on that?
Fuel pump, check the fuel line, fuel rail, see if it's getting
Well,
enough pressure.
You got to remember, it runs just fine after about 15 minutes. So whatever you come up with is going to have to meet that criteria, right? All right. So I just asked her this: does it do this all the time? And what I meant is, does it do it every time you start it up? Did it start this after somebody worked on it? And I said, check to see if the map sensor and the TPS connectors are swapped, because you can do that on this car, and they're right close to one another, right? The map sensor should have yellow, red wire, red, green wire, and green, white wire, and the TPS should have those colors: yellow, blue, red, black, green, black. And there's your photo. See, I put her a photo in there so she could kind of get an idea of where to look for this. And so what gets me is how many of these, how many emails I get from women that are trying to solve their own problem. They don't even have anybody to give them a hand, you know what I mean? And the problem with going to a shop, not every shop, some shops are really decent and treat everybody right. Sometimes if you go to a shop and you're a female, they try to take advantage of you because they think you don't know nothing. You know what I mean? All right, so she says, it only does it when I first begin to drive it, and only sometimes then. That's interesting. When I first bought the car about 6 months ago, it wasn't doing it, but over time it has gradually gotten worse. That's a clue, right? It was doing it some. Somebody probably sold it because it was beginning to do that. Okay? So she said, I checked what you suggested and they're correct. I don't understand why no engine light's coming on. She's not getting an engine light. And it seems to me like she should, but I don't know exactly how reliable the strategies are on that 2000 Honda in catching things, you know. Because sometimes you can have problems. It seems like they ought to throw a check engine light and don't. While I'm driving, it's no problem. It goes rather quickly, but it just, when I started after sitting for a while. When she sent me this email, I started getting an idea that I thought I might know where her issue was. What she may have is a head gasket leaking coolant into one or more of the cylinders. And how that works is, there's a bunch of ways a head gasket can blow. But I used to drive, I've actually seen them go both ways. I used to drive my yellow Jeep from here to Enterprise, and I'd stop at Winn-Dixie, and I'd go in there and get some bananas or whatever I was after, and I'd come back out there and I'd fire it up, and it just missed like a dog on 3. And I actually, that one was missing bad enough and long enough where I get a misfire code. Now, she should have had some kind of code to it, seems to me like, but you never know. Sometimes misfires will throw a code, and sometimes they won't. It depends on how the miss is taking place. Anyway, so what I said, I always crank it up. You know, while it's still running rough, I switch it off while it's still running rough, and as quick as I can, I pull the plugs out. If I see steam coming off one of the plugs, I know there's coolant getting in that cylinder. Really simple. Now, head gaskets can blow so that there's compression getting into the water jacket, and that makes them run hot. If they ease coolant into the cylinder, it wets the spark plug, and why does a wet spark plug not fire? Does anybody know? I mean, why in the world is a wet spark plug not fire? It's still a spark plug. Shouldn't it fire if it's wet? The spark's going to run on the wet. It's not jumping the gap, because the easiest path is to follow the whatever it is, gas or coolant or whatever. Something else you can do, you can pull the plugs out, and if you see this greenish, frosty looking tint on them, then basically that means you've got issues with that. All right, so I don't have any follow-up with it this morning. That email came in yesterday. well, last night actually, and I answered it this morning, and I don't know yet what, you know, is going on with that. Here's one right here. This is, now it could be a boy, could be a girl. There's guys named Stacy out there, but I don't know. I'm so glad I come across your page, so on and so forth. I got my oil changed. The place didn't put oil in my car. The engine got seized on the driver's side, found inside the engine that a few rocker rollers were completely ruined. This sounds like a train wreck, doesn't it? Replaced them? Did she do this herself? Did he do it himself? I don't know if it's a she or he. Got a new battery, new spark plugs, and now it runs once again. It runs weird. At times it drives perfect, other times it's a slow start. When I mean floor it, it doesn't kick out of the slowness until about 25 miles an hour. This is similar to what she's talking about, isn't it? Except this one will go on after a while. Then continually I have to floor it because it seems to not get enough power to get the speed I'm holding on the accelerator. I've been told it's fuel injectors, but I feel it has something to do with the fuel pump or maybe the filter. If I stay in the park, rev the engine, it drives fast until a few minutes later, and then back to slowness. You're gonna deal with this. Troubleshooting is part of the deal. You know what I mean? All right, let me see if I do that. Would like to change my own, well, that girl there, whenever she had, when I sent her back, you know, it seems to me like I had a fuel filter issue. I said, you know, you need the cheapest thing to do right now is to put a fuel filter on it, because somebody can talk about the fuel filter anyway. And she said, call back and said, they took care of it. I think so. A lot of the times the fuel filter takes care of it. The fuel filter's not gonna keep it from starting. It'll make it run bad when you're trying to pass a car, or when you're trying to pick up speed or something like that. And like you see people every now and then say, my car wouldn't start and I changed the fuel filter. Well, they didn't do anything then except change the fuel filter. This guy says, would like to change my own cabin filter, don't know where it is. Well, I told him where it was. Is there a service manual for 2001 Ford Windstar? Well, there is, but he don't want to have to buy it because it's expensive. I got a clicking sound. Vent door trying to open or close when the heater's on, get the heater blow warm air. I have to have all the back vents on at the same time with the air conditioner, got a clicking noise. So I told her it's related to some jam doors in the plenum. The actuators make that noise when they try to move the door, and it won't move. The technician will remove the actuator and try to move the doors by hand. If they move freely, the actuator will be replaced. If not, the plenum has to come out. So he says, repair's done, the heater's working. So he basically found out that he had actuator issues. So he took care of that. Here's one right here. Got a 2000 VW Jetta GLS with a 2-liter. For some reason, the idle is really low, and oddly enough, the cruise doesn't work. Because I had this issue before and had a loose battery connection. When I tightened the battery cables, the problem went away. I had to change the front headlight. When I reconnected the battery, now I have the same problem again, except this time I can't seem to fix it. It won't idle. You can get it idle. All right, now, sometimes, and this happens on Dodge trucks too, you may take the battery cable loose on your Dodge truck and you may find out when you're done it won't idle. Sometimes that happens. And that's because it has learned to idle with dirty throttle running. All right. So I said the cruise control problem is peculiar. It may not be related to the idle or not. All right. So tackle the idle speed. Get some Behrman carpet spray, clean your throttle body with a toothbrush, legend gummy stuff that gathers around the throttle plate. It comes from the PCV system. There's a bunch of steam from the PCV system floating around in the upper intake, and it coats the back of the throttle plate. You choke the airflow after you disconnect the battery. PCM will generally forget what it learned as the throttle body slowly builds up the deposit, so it'll take a while for the PCM to relearn those values. All right, so we have to start over like it was a new car. Take the battery terminal, remove it again, clean the throttle body, reconnect the battery, start the engine. After the carb spray's been cleared from the intake, you may have to rev it slightly to clear the puddle cleaner. It should idle and learn the parameters. Let me know what that does. Clean the throttle body, took care of the idle. It was about 600 all the time, cold or warm. After they cleaned it, it's idling at 800, which by the time I got to work with his Alvin, he was happy with that. It's basically having to go through a learning cycle. This one right here is an interesting one. This is a different kind of problem. Look what she said. We run a repair shop. We have trouble finding technicians. Read your article in Motor Age. Seems like your school gives students hands-on training that schools don't seem to be giving. That's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we're learning how to take out rounded off bolts, aren't we? I mean, that's what we do here, isn't it? That's part of it. All right. Let's see. Do you have any graduates that are from this area? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this letter came from Pennsylvania or somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I guess you thought my school was a lot bigger than it was or something. We're in a small shop, but we've been in business for 10 years and have a loyal customer base on trust and referrals. Our technicians must share our vision for quality work and professionalism. You got that? In addition, as we work on ATVs, mowers, tractors, medium and heavy duty trucks as well, they work on everything. That kind of reminds me of that shop at Enterprise over, coffee over there. They do all that. Thank you in advance for any tips you can provide to help us find good technicians and keep up the interesting articles. That was something that I'm hearing from everywhere. I mean, if you get to where you're really good at doing this kind of work, you can pretty much write your ticket because everybody's looking for help.
Did you say where in Pennsylvania? Because I know a shop like that.
I don't even know. That's an email I got a while back. I don't remember where it was, but that's funny. All right. Drops my 2003 Auto SE1 Grand Am, 125,000 highway miles off of the shop. Total test drove with mechanics. Hear the combo of a grinding, dragging sound my baby makes. Now this is the person's real email. I did not alter this. You can hear it best with you foot off gas. Noise loud, more loud close when it should up or down shift, audible between 10 and 35. You can feel it like a vibration under the driver's passenger seat, like the top of a T, not constant. See what I'm saying? More and more often, no tranny fluid leak and no real noticeable tranny misbehavior. Now they kept swearing it was a wheel bearing, so I let them replace it. Knew they were wrong. Number one drove it 10 feet. After they fixed it, it was still making the noise. And number two, they charged me $400 plus to change one front wheel bearing. Robbery. So I have to go pick up my car and get it to someone. What is this noise and vibration? What could it be? Well, it's tough to fix that on the phone or, I got a call one time from Africa. I'm not kidding. I was at the Ford place in Dothan and people were always calling me wanting to, help troubleshoot and stuff. They'd call me up there and I talked to them on the phone. And this guy was from Africa, it was a real scratchy connection, the other side of the planet over there, and his Jeep wouldn't start. And believe it or not, we got it started. I told those Italian mechanics what to, he said, "Here's don't let you talk to the mechanic." And the Italian mechanic goes on the phone. He said, he's talking so thick Italian accent, I can't understand anything he's saying because I'm kind of a redneck. But I said, "Let me speak to the man that owns the Jeep." Yeah. I said, "Yeah, I need to speak to him." So he puts back on there. When I got through talking to him and he got through talking to them, I heard it start up, so we got it done. I don't remember what it was, but this has been 15, 20 years ago. So what's the noise and vibration? I had the same people I'm worried about do a transit flush last month. Wrong fluid. They also replaced shock struts loose and new, because they want to know if they make a mistake. And in August, new brakes. What could it be? I've heard the terms from my sister. Her sister? His sisters? Or is this a female? Or I don't know if it's a man or a woman. I don't remember. Spider gears, shift, differential drive components. Sound like his sister's pretty knowledgeable, Transmission, motor, tranny mounts. Any help, I will be so grateful. I have no idea what they found because there's no way on earth I can do anything about that from an email. People can describe stuff. But I hope you got a little something out of that. But everybody's basically looking for something.
Yeah.